who's the Deputy Chief Executive Officer at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, or KEPSA. She's also a seasoned business leader and engineer. And joining us virtually is Shailene Momanyi, who is in charge of strategic thinking and planning at the Young Women's Leadership Institute in Kenya. Thank you all for joining me. Let me begin with you, Shailene. I know you are the remote guest tonight, but when you look at the numbers and statistics from last year, and we want to kind of take it away from that, how bad was it? Because I know you did a lot of work, in the grassroots. How bad was it in terms of what young women, girls were suffering during that time?
Thank you so much, Victoria, for having me. During COVID-19 period, I feel that the SGBV cases, that is sexual and gender-based violence cases, were amplified by the COVID pandemic. Over the years, women's rights organizations have been organizing around ending violence against women. The numbers look the same, really, just looking at, also reflecting from the previous year, COVID-19, where women and girls were forced to stay in homes due to the COVID-19 restrictions. The cases now were amplified. And also reporting in terms of the media also amplified how that is really affecting women and girls. So this is something that has been of discussion, that needs redress. But then I feel that also looking at the current campaigns on Generation Equality Forum, whereby the Kenyan government is taking lead in the Ending Gender-Based Violence Action Coalition, it is a step forward and also an opportunity for the Kenyan government to really work towards ending gender-based violence. And especially what stands out for us is if budgets are also put in place to end femicide, like the intentional killing of women. We know from 2019, women and feminist activists have been organizing around ending femicide, the intentional killing of women, and this is an issue that we haven't had like proper guidelines, budgeting put in place to be able to curb femicide. So I feel that COVID-19 amplified.
Okay, we seem to be having a technical issue on your end, Shailene, so allow me to interrupt and try and bring you in there, because people are calling this the silent or hidden pandemic, if you will. And the question now is, we know these cases were happening, but what's being done about them? And it basically asking, is there justice? If someone reports, do they get justice? We know how our court system can be. You work in there every day, almost. Is there a sense of justice for a lot of these victims?
Thank you so much, Victoria, for that question. And in answering that, yes, actually, sexual gender-based violence proved to be like a second pandemic. And COVID-19 just amplified that situation to the negative. And in respect to justice, yes, there is justice to the victims and survivors. But the question is, again, the gaps that we have in terms of policies and laws. Because we find out when victims report these matters and we take them to court, they tend to take a longer period to conclusion. That is the one of the main reasons that we find it to be a bit a challenge. But I would say, yes, there is justice, but the process is a bit longer. So
why does it take longer? Is it an issue of evidence? What could be delaying that process?
Yes, the issue of evidence is one aspect of it. And because sometimes we find out most of the victims or survivors, they report these matters a bit late. by the time they get to the police and other key players, it's a bit late, and we try to take the matters back. So you find out that in terms of collecting evidence and trying to, because the matter cannot go to court without proper evidence. And this has also been one reason that has also dragged these matters to court. Because again, the prosecution cannot open the file without the clear or complete evidence. Yeah.
And Martha, let me bring you in here, because I know KEPSA has literally taken this agenda and ran with it. Yes. Why now, and what did you see amongst your members perhaps that kind of required this kind of response?
Great, thanks Victoria. It came at a very good moment in the context that, as the previous speakers have said, COVID just amplified it. It did happen before, and something that we did as the apex body of the private sector, once we knew COVID is within the country, we had to engage government in terms of how do we ensure that policies and strategies are there to help the business environment in terms of moving forward. So we did carry out a survey, and these surveys were quarterly, and out of the respondents, we identified that 10% of the respondents actually say they experienced GBV. And so looking at the statistics that you shared, then it tells you it is necessary for the private sector to be involved, because it has a ripple effect on the economy and even our businesses. Now, why now? And the question of why are we also involved is purely because we also want to enhance industrial harmony. You want to look at all our employees, where they're coming from. They wake up in the morning, they're coming to do their businesses. What's their mental state? Are they okay? When they go back in the evening, are they happy to go home, or are they going to look for excuses of not going back home? And what does that mean to us now as the private sector? There was a study that was done, I guess, in 2017, and it identified that about 46 billion was lost annually. And when you look at that amount of money, it relates to the costs associated with the GBV. So you have healthcare costs, you have those who are injured, unfortunately there are those who die, and then they don't come to the office. So also as an organization, you're looking at increased healthcare costs. So maybe I can also highlight something that we noted. When we did the study, we opened up a call center. And remember, KEPSA just brings up, it's the private apex body of the private sector. We have business associations, we have SMEs, startups that are there, and we have, you're looking at multinationals, corporates, so the entire segment of the private sector, and it covers countrywide. So we set up a call center, that's 1196, and this was in collaboration with Telesky. So initially we were providing information to the business community. Where do you get PPEs? What does it mean when you have COVID? Where do you run to? Who do you need to talk to? But the calls that came in, Vicky, is that there were cases of GBV. There are cases of women who are at home and they could not access healthcare services at night during curfew. So we expanded the program purely from one as business information, and then we introduced a section now to transport women at night after curfew hours. So you call the call center and the ambulance is sent to your place, or cabs, but there is a doctor first who attends to you. And that is now called the Wheels for Life initiative. And I must say, we actually also thank Citizen TV, because we did it together. And the success is we have over 9,000 women that were supported. Yeah. But then the third thing is there are cases of violence. People call in and they need help. So we had to partner and look for a solution. And for your information, it was just not women alone. We had men who called in. And it was because they feel the stigma in the society, so we called it the Men in Silence. And we did have a partner. If you look at, we have the Danshishi Foundation. So it actually caters for, so we have the counselors that guide and help on those cases. So why KEPSA came in is because we need to walk this journey together. We are pushing for sustainable development, and the sustainable development has three components. There's people, there's profit, and there's planet. So we are known as private sector to push for profit. But remember, there are other things. Yeah. There's people. And who are the people? All this. So if they're not okay, then be assured your business will not be okay. So those are the reasons why we really feel we want to be in this space, and we want to lead and coordinate the private sector actions on just making sure that we have a GBV-free society. That's what we're looking for.
It's interesting because you've seen the pandemic almost have companies lead with empathy during this time. Let me bring you in, Sharon, because as Martha talked about, the call center was started and they were inundated with calls of people who were suffering violence and just other kinds of gender-based violence. How do we see more of that? Because we know already reporting is a problem. Some people, like the men, feel stigmatized. For some women, they feel they will be further victimized if they do. So what's the role of something like psychosocial support and counseling to help them be open about the things that they're going through?
Thank you so much. Yes, actually we've seen there's a really big problem when it comes to reporting, both at the victims and also on the other end of the stakeholders. And we've also noticed a very big challenge when it comes to men reporting, because there's that issue of stigmatization and all that. They are not that confident when they come out and report these issues. So as civil society organization, NGOs, we've been trying to work closely with the government, especially the police departments and all that, because we also understand the police cannot take care of all these cases. So we have been trying to do grassroots advocacy campaigns just to educate the communities on the grassroots level, to talk to them and empower them whenever they come out or they face any situation of gender-based violence or sexual harassment. We provide them with the legal awareness mechanism where they can report this matter without fear or intimidation or the fear of being stigmatized. So we have seen civil society, like the NGOs, we've come on board and also try to assist victims in terms of psychosocial counseling, because it really plays a big role, because you find when someone has been violated, there's that aspect of healing, which also takes a very long time, and also acceptance. So psychosocial counseling has really played a very big part to the victims, and ensuring that they also get access to justice, and also integration to community through social awareness and all that. So we have really tried to work so closely with the victims, survivors, and try to also integrate the government, because the justice cannot be attained or achieved without putting the government justice part of it. So we have tried to incorporate that all aspect so that we can see victims and survivors of gender-based violence as much as they get the healing process. Yeah. And we also ensure those ones who are willing to pursue the justice cause, which we really encourage, we also help them to walk through that journey.
And Shailene, let me bring you in on something you mentioned earlier, funding. And we know oftentimes if it's an institution or if it's an individual, when you put your money where your mouth is, you're serious. And I'm saying that because the government had committed 2.3 billion shillings to dealing with the GBV in the country. Do you feel that is enough in helping to address some of these issues, or more needs to be done?
Yeah, well...
Sorry, that was actually to Shailene.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Victoria. So I feel that that's a step forward. Also looking at from the past, in terms of our advocacy, we've been advocating for budgeting for policy implementations and also GBV laws to be implemented. So having the 2.3 billion to support in programs or implementation of laws is really a good step forward. But then more to be done, because when you look at GBV and GBV response, there is a lot of things that are needed. We have protection. We have also safe houses. Sustaining a safe house is very expensive, and if you look at 2.3 billion shillings, and also looking at the time frame at which implementation is to be done, then that is really little money. also something that we are also advocating for is the Kenyan government to be able to support women's rights programs as a government, because women's rights organizations depend on donor funding, and the kind of funding that comes from the government is actually loans, which is not suitable for organizations, and especially grassroots organizations who really get it difficult to receive funding, like donor funding. It is really brilliant that we see the 2.3 billion shillings being used effectively in ending gender-based violence. Right. But then also there was a commitment to also raise the budget to 5 billion, I think, to the year 2026. So this is something that we're also looking forward to, and civil society supporting the government right. In influencing implementation. Yeah.
Martha, there's something that was quite ambitious when I read it. It's another commitment from government. Mm-hmm. And I know how we get whenever government makes commitments. Yes. But they said, want to eradicate harassment in the workplace by 2026 through policy implementation. Yeah. From where you sit, because this is now your purview, mm-hmm.
What are KEPSA members doing or have already done to try and get to that goal much earlier than 2026?
Mm-hmm. Yes, commitments are there. And one thing that we can confirm, remember the Generation Equality Forum?
Yes.
As KEPSA, we are members of the steering committee. So when government gave their commitments, I think there are about 12 of them. Also the private sector, we came with about 7 commitments as private sector and said as KEPSA. And remember also KEPSA has the KEPSA Foundation that looks at the socio-economic impact. So these two came in and decided that what exactly. So one thing that we're doing currently is we are looking for data. We promote evidence-based discussions. So one thing that we're doing is we're doing a baseline study actually that is currently going on, and would wish the private sector out there to actually go to our social pages and look at it. Because we want to get the feeling, what do employees say and what are the employers saying? So what policies are implemented within that? Then we do a lot of partnerships. So everything I discuss, remember, it is in collaboration with other stakeholders. So there is a foundation, we have the MasterCard Foundation that came in, and one way that we noted GBV comes in is because there's root causes. There's poverty, then there's power dynamics, and then there's also biases from the culture. So looking at all this, one thing that we agreed is, can we empower people? And we promoted women and youth-led businesses, offering them various activities. We offered interest-free loans to them so that they could come over the effects of COVID-19. We also did mentorship. So every Friday, you'd have like 500 participants participating and just listening in, because you're bringing in seasoned industry captains to talk to the upcoming SMEs. So you're providing that opportunity so that you can give them the chance to be stable in terms of economically, and therefore they can go through. And that's a way of preventing future GBV cases. So we've looked at mentorship. There's also training, looking at skills. Yeah. And remember, right now with COVID and the way we are moving, we've now brought in the digital revolution has come in very fast. So we have designed programs that promote the digital economy. So we had situations, our partnership with Mastercard, Timea, that is the trademark East Africa, where we embodied people on the e-commerce digital platforms. So you find them there. So you're looking at over 2,000 SMEs that have benefited. We're also looking at Ajira. These are the youth. And remember, there are 2 ways of managing GBV. There are those that are already going through the process, so you're looking at management, but there's also prevention. So looking at generational change, could we involve the youth? So yes, looking at the population of Kenya, 75% are the youth. So if you can manage and tell these people, give them skills, empower them, and show them that we can have a society that is GBV free and it is okay not to have violence, then it means in the next 10 years or 20 years, then that discussion, we expect a reduction of GBV. So those are the processes that we have and the programs that we do. And let me also add something. I remember, I think that also the speakers have mentioned about policies and working with government, is that through KEPSA, we have sector boards. Our advocacy are through sector boards, and that is the public-private dialogue platforms that we established. And we meet a government. So one of them is the Ministry of Gender. So we have that in government, but we also have the Gender Sector Board. So Gender Sector Board is tasked and it aims to ensure that there is gender mainstreaming within private sector. So we look at equality, diversity, all that ascertains to that. So those commitments, that's how we'll implement them. But amongst them, we had to introduce a subcommittee that is dealing with GBV and mental health. So looking at this, we've also seen organizations, and there are members who come up to tell you they have programs and training programs on the scene. But on the contrary, I'd bring you something else, is that there have been some challenges, even as we do this. And what challenges are there? Data.
Yeah.
We talked about it. Capacity. Do we have gender experts in the private sector to just demystify the GBV effect on private sector? So when you look at that, there are initiatives that we have done as KEPSA, and even through our members, and our members, whatever they're doing, is really promoting that and promoting a GBV society. So those things are existing. It could be in piecemeal. We can always explore them, but we are coming in to coordinate it.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, it's clear from this conversation that this is a multi-sectoral initiative. You have to have all hands on deck to ensure that GBV is a thing of the past. Thank you so much to my panelists, to Martha, Sharon, and Shailene, who joined us virtually. Keep the conversation going on social media, #CitizenWeekend. That does it for the broadcast. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Victoria Rubadiri. Our sign language interpreter tonight has been Wilson Mushora. One Love is up next.